Welcome to today's episode, where we dive deep into the critical topic of reducing contact lens dropout with our special guest, Dr. Scott Moskow, Clinical Director at Roswell Eye Clinic. If you've ever faced the challenge of patients losing interest in contact lenses or seen the business impact of low capture rates, this episode is for you. Dr. Moskow shares powerful insights on how to reignite patient interest, improve capture rates, and effectively address common complaints that might be driving your patients away. We also explore the latest innovations, the value of free demos, and the importance of consistent staff training in keeping your contact lens patients engaged and satisfied. Stay tuned as we uncover strategies that could transform how you present contact lenses in your practice and ultimately boost your bottom line. Hi, welcome to another episode of I Own a Business, where we focus on helping practice owners grow the practice of their dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Steve Vargo, and I have with me Dr. Scott Moskow, who is Clinical Director at Roswell Eye Clinic, where he focuses on fitting specialty contact lenses and treating eye disease. So what is going on, Dr. Moskow?
How's it going? Great to be with you here.
Was the last time we were together was in Costa Rica?
We were in Costa Rica. Absolutely. Had a good time. We spent almost a week together in Costa Rica.
Yes, there's worse places to hang out. So that was a lot of fun. So, well, today you and I are going to talk about a very specific type of patient. And that patient would be the one where when you ask, have you ever worn contacts before? Do you wear contacts? They say, I used to wear contacts, or I stopped wearing contacts, or I wasn't able to wear contacts, or I can no longer afford contacts. So in other words, we're talking about the contact lens dropout. So today we're going to talk about how to prevent that, but also maybe how to get some of those dropouts back into contacts. And we're going to make a pretty strong case, not only why this is good for the patient, but why it's also good for the practice and the business as well. So a little teaser phrase here, which we'll get into, is lifetime value. So we're going to get into that a little bit from now. So you mentioned something before when we were talking. I think this would be a good place to start. I thought this was interesting. You were talking about how low capture rate can lead to more contact lens dropout. And I thought that was a really interesting cause and effect that I hadn't considered. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what got me started thinking about this was actually when Nathan Hayes was on one of the I Own a Doc or I Own a Business podcasts from iDoc. And he stated, I'm going to quote him here, office sales are the strongest predictor of patient satisfaction. So that really, I was inspired by that phrase because, of course, if you do a great job, but you're not good at selling something, then yeah, you're not going to capture that sale. But if you do a crummy job, you're never going to capture that sale. So we were thinking about, what do we do that's successful with contact lenses? Our practice is 84% for the first half of the year daily disposables. And we were thinking, how did we get to 84% daily disposables? Because we don't have 84% of our patients coming in with problems. Oftentimes, hey, I'm just here for my contact lens eval. I can't order contact lenses. And what we do is we start digging a little bit more. There's three properties that make a contact lens successful: vision, comfort, and health. And in my opinion, the patient is judging vision, the patient is judging comfort, and it's up to the doctor to talk about health. So we dig a little bit deeper. We find problems that the patient has normalized, and we fix those problems that the patient didn't have. Of course, we do fix the problems that the patient comes in with, but the biggest thing is trying to fix those normalized problems. So going back to your question, how do losing contact lens sales to online usually, because most of us, if we're not capturing those contact lens sales in our practice, it's unlikely that they're going to be going to another private practice, let's say. They're probably going to go to a big box retailer, or they're going to be going online. So how does losing a contact lens sale to, say, online decrease the chances that patient continues wearing lenses? Well, how many times can you fit a patient in the same product before the patient says, that's kind of a pain in the butt and kind of a ripoff to pay a contact lens evaluation. I'm going to buy online. Then when it's time for them to reorder contact lenses, hey, how about you get our online eye exam? So then they get the online eye exam the next year. And when they get an online eye exam, whether consciously or subconsciously, they have a lower bar for their expectations of contact lenses. Well, of course, it's not going to be perfectly clear because I did an online eye exam, or, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's good enough for me. And then finally, those patients are just going to say, these contact lenses are blurry. These are not comfortable. I'm just going to take myself out of contact lenses. So we see that if we didn't capture the sale, they go online, they buy those contact lenses, they, get a contact lens prescription online, whether through an online eye exam or illegally without a prescription. And then they take themselves out of contact lenses. They show back up in our practice in 3-4 years, something like that. And we want to reintroduce that patient to contact lenses. But that's my theory on how losing that contact lens sale snowballs into the patient taking themselves out of contact lenses.
Yeah, and to your point, I've made this point before. I think once they get you in their system, in particular the online, they kind of got you, right? I've never ordered contact lenses online, but I'm going to assume they make the process really easy, and they probably have really good systems in place to the trigger when you're due for contacts, and there's a big convenience factor there. So you on the topic of you mentioned with online, you're kind of getting the same thing over and over. Talk to me about introducing new products and technology. And one, where do you draw the line between somebody's happy with something, why fix something that's not broken, right? Versus making sure that you're staying on top and of the changes and talking to patients about new products and technology. And why, maybe there's a two-part question. Why don't more doctors talk to some of these patients? Because even when I was practicing, I saw a lot of patients who would come in unhappy with the context they were in, but just nobody ever changed them.
So that's interesting. So we have a lot of patients coming in, and let's say last year they had a half a diopter of astigmatism. And I think all of us would never fit a patient with half a diopter of astigmatism in a toric contact lens. So oftentimes I'll see a patient comes back in, and let's say they're like 20/25 out of their left eye. And we notice that, oh my gosh, their astigmatism went from half a diopter to a full diopter of astigmatism. But when you talk to the patient, they say, you know what, I'm seeing great everywhere, no big deal. So I say, it doesn't look like you're seeing as well out of one eye. What happens if I put you in a toric lens? Let me upgrade you to something that allows you to see better. So even if a patient isn't complaining about something in particular, I'm going to preemptively try to solve a problem that they didn't know that they had. Let me give you another example. Let's say a patient who's, say, 45, 50 years old comes in distance-only contact lenses. And I say, patient, how are you seeing in single vision distance contact lenses? We know that you have presbyopia. I'm not using those words, but I'm saying that for the docs out here. How do you feel like you're doing? I'm perfect. And guess what they have hanging around their neck or in the pocket of their jacket? A set of readers. I say, wouldn't it be nice if you could drive to dinner and didn't have to have those readers hanging around your neck? So trying to solve that problem that the patient didn't know that they had. Now let's think back to how we were trained. I think all of our staff doctors in optometry school or your externships are saying, oh my gosh, if a patient is happy and they're over 40 years old putting on readers, don't even think about touching that patient. Don't even think about introducing multifocals. Well, why? Well, maybe we didn't have good products back then, or maybe they weren't comfortable fitting multifocals. I blame everything. I think it was crummier products because we couldn't get the optics, or really I think hydration also has a big effect on clarity, dehydration of the contact lens when patients are over 40 years old. But also doctors just remembering that it was kind of a pain in the neck to fit those multifocal patients. But we do want to fit those multifocal patients because we want to make sure that this person doesn't go online next year because they're quote unquote happy with their current setup, if that makes sense. There's a book out there called Seven Habits or Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he talks about the emotional bank account. And let's talk about this with relationships first, and then we can go into how this affects our relationship with my spouse relationship first, and then we'll talk about relationships with staff and patients eventually. So in that book, they talk about you have emotional deposits and emotional withdrawals from everybody in your life. So my wife and I, we've got an 8-month-old daughter. And every time that I decide I'm going to take that 3 a.m. feeding when she wakes up in the middle of the night, I get an emotional deposit. And eventually, I'm going to want to take an emotional withdrawal. So I need to make sure I have enough emotional deposits in there. So when I say, hey, Anna, I would like to go on a guy's ski trip and leave you with my children for 4 days, I'm able to take that emotional withdrawal and able to go on that trip without my wife being mad at me. Of course, if you were to hypothetically cheat on your spouse, that's emotional bankruptcy. It's probably pretty hard to come back from that. So let's talk about our existing patients in our practice. Let's say you've been seeing these patients for years and years at a time, and you're usually running on time, and you really are very, answering every single question that they have. But one time that existing patient comes in and you're rushed and you're running late, and they don't maybe have the very best experience that they're used to. Well, you've made all of those emotional deposits on that existing patient, and on that one day when you have to take that emotional withdrawal, they know that you're a good doctor, even if they didn't have that excellent experience that you're always striving for. We all have those days. It's going to be harder for a new patient for you to rush through that exam. And that's actually something that I kind of keep in mind when I am running behind. That, listen, if I got a good relationship with someone, I can maybe not say, do you have any other questions, comments, concerns at the end of the exam? Hey, we're wrapping up. Let's go walk up front. So those are the type of things that you can do when you have those emotional deposits. Let's talk about contact lenses, right? Let's say that a patient comes in and you say, hey, patient, I want to fit you with this brand new product. Well, doc, what product is it? Oh, it's ABC contact lens. Okay, great. You walk out of the room to go grab that sample. That patient takes out their phone and they look up, what is that contact lens price online on the shopping tab? They're not going to checkout. They're looking that up on the shopping tab. And if you come in and you put that lens on and that contact lens price is way, way higher than they just saw online, that's an emotional withdrawal. That patient's going to say, oh my gosh, this place is a ripoff. Now you're trying to climb out of that hole that you have because the patient thinks you're too expensive. And guess what? If you have that emotional withdrawal that the patient is going to be ripped off buying contact lenses from your practice, do you think your optical is going to be something separate? They're going to say, well, let's give the optical a try. Maybe the optical is more affordable. No, they're going to say, no, this is a ripoff everywhere in their withdrawal versus an emotional deposit. Oh my gosh, at Roswell Eye Clinic, I can buy contact lenses for $20 less a box than I see online. Maybe the optical is affordable too. But in order to have that comparison, you got to really compare apples to apples. So when we look online and we see what a box price of contact lenses is online, is that the most expensive way you can buy the contact lenses or the least expensive? Of course, it's the least. It's a year's supply. It doesn't include the fees for signing up for the website or the shipping. When your technicians go into the exam lane, are they often presenting the most expensive way you can buy that box of contact lenses or the least expensive? And I would venture to say most of us are presenting the most expensive. We used to, not anymore.
Some great points there. And well, first of all, it sounds like maybe you've got a ski trip coming up.
Not anytime soon.
Not any,
We're dead
okay.
summer. I'm not making that long of a trek to the other side of the world to ski in New Zealand, although I'd love to.
Got it. I
That
just
that
didn't know if
I
that
would
was
need
subconscious or there was an
I would
actual
need
trip coming up.
more. I would need a lot more emotional deposits to pull off a New Zealand ski trip right now.
Yeah, very true. Very true. You mentioned a book that I've read before, The Seven Habits of Highly, is it Effective People? And
Ooh.
it reminds me of another book. I was thinking it was from that one. The more I thought about it, it's from the book Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini, which talks about one of the key principles of influence is the law of reciprocity. So a lot of tie-ins there with the more your culture and your delivery is built around give, 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 that people naturally want to give back to you. Now, there's no guarantees at the end of that process that they're going to say, yes, I want to do business with you. But I think if you put all those things in place, the minute they walk into the door, give, 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 they're going to be more likely to want to give back to your business versus taking what you referred to as those emotional withdrawals. If somebody comes in and there's a long wait and then the front desk person is kind of rude to them and there's a big sign at the front that says no returns and you're taking from them along the way there, it might be a different outcome by the time they get to the end. So some great points there. We've talked a lot about the vision side of things. If somebody's not happy with the vision and how that can lead to dropouts, but there's also the aspect of discomfort. And I find this, and I'm sure you experience something very similar, but when I was in practice, one of the biggest reasons that people, when I would see them come in, maybe for the first time, and they had worn contacts before, but they didn't wear them anymore. A lot of times the complaint was discomfort. And they would say, well, I can't wear them. The contacts weren't comfortable. And then you do the exam, you'd say, okay, you do the exam. A lot of times what you find is they've got dry eye. And what I would always say is I would look at them and say, would you like to wear contact lenses again? And you could just see their eyes light up. It's like they didn't know this was possible. And I realized, wow, this happens all the time. There is a untapped market for previous contact lens wearers and a tremendous opportunity to get, maybe from a branding standpoint, to be that OD that gets people back into contact lenses, right? So is that something you've experienced? And has this, where does this impact the dry eye part of your practice?
So you're absolutely right. We are always looking at this, and I think in a lot of practices they book either a glasses exam or a contact lens exam, and it's these two separate categories. And I find that doctors that have a patient that comes in booked for a glasses only exam, they oftentimes don't bring up the fact that the patient used to wear contact lenses. When I see that the patient's not purchasing a contact lens evaluation today, I ask, well, why are we not doing contact lenses today? And the patient often says, like you said, sometimes it's vision, a lot of the time it's comfort. The lenses just weren't comfortable for me back in the past. So then, yes, let's say this is the VSP exam. It takes me 2 seconds to put a little fluorescein in the eye and do a quick tear breakup time. Listen, patient, your tears are evaporating in literally 1 second. We have dry eye on our hands. Let's go ahead. Let's start a dry eye treatment. Once we get the dry eye under control, then let's do another look at contact lenses and see if we can't get you back into contact lenses. Why don't you come back in a month? You'll see us under your medical insurance for a medical office visit. At that point in time, we can think about contact lenses. Now, let's say we saw the patient back in a month. Let's say the dry is looking a whole lot better for this example. And we say, patient, you ready to go back into contact lenses? I see that your tear breakup time is about 7 seconds. You're doing a whole lot better. Let's get you back into contact lenses. Well, doc, isn't there like an evaluation fee? I just remember last time the doc just had such a tough time before just telling me I wasn't a good candidate for contact lenses anymore. In our practice, we do a free contact lens demo for this type of patient. We also do it for a patient that's never worn contact lenses before, just to say, listen, you're a great candidate for contact lenses. Let me put a free contact lens demo on you. Now, this all started when I read the EASE study, the Enhancing Approach to Selecting Eyewear study done out of London. And in that study, the inclusion criteria were patients that did not sign up for a contact lens evaluation. So they're there in London, just here for glasses. They said, patients, do you want a free contact lens demo? We put them on. You go to optical and check out glasses. Nearly all the patients love the fact that they got to free test drive contact lenses. We just built some value into the exam, to a glasses exam. A third of the patients ended up purchasing contact lenses that day. And again, these patients didn't think that they were even candidates or didn't even know that they wanted contact lenses. And in optical, they spent about 60 or 65, I can't remember, more pounds. 60 to 65 more pounds in optical on glasses because they could see what they look like in those maybe higher end glasses or whatever it may be. We've extrapolated that and done that in our office. We have a formalized contact lens demo program. Let's put the contact lenses on, take them off before you go, absolutely free to test drive. We know that you had dropped out of contact lenses patient before because the contact lenses were dry or not clear, or you had trouble handling them, whatever it may be. At our practice, we've got a 65% conversion rate for a contact lens eval purchased that day. 65% of the time, patients that came in that didn't even think they wanted or didn't think that they were candidates for contact lenses end up purchasing a contact lens evaluation. That is astronomically important to our patient value, but also to our bottom line. I have no way of tracking the patients that come back another day that end up purchasing a contact lens evaluation, or maybe next year, hey, I'm signing up for a contact lens evaluation. I test drove it last year. It was pretty cool. Didn't want to do it then, but now I know that, I hate wearing glasses on the golf course. Let me get in those contact lenses.
I'm familiar with the EASE study, and it sounds like your experience was very similar to that study. So that's pretty phenomenal, 65 cents. I'm going to ask you in a minute about the business side of that, but can we debunk the word free for a minute? And because I think that's a word that really it gets a negative connotation in eye care, and it's not always bad. Doctors a lot of times will say, don't give away your services for free, but let's look a little bit deeper at this. If somebody comes in and they're uncertain, on whether or not contacts are going to work, and there's a fee. How does that feel? There's a word there that's pretty it's pretty clear that this is one of the top things that prevents consumers from moving forward with the purchase, and that's risk. Anything that feels risky is going to cause people to hit pause, and that's one of the top reasons we don't buy things. We object to things if there's a sense of risk. And essentially, what you've done is just you took away the risk. And I use this example in one of my presentations on proof versus claims. And people, if there's anything we're numb to these days, it's claims. And we hear claims from politicians and businesses and even doctors. And we saw this all play out during COVID, how many different healthcare professionals were making all kinds of claims. We are just naturally wired to be skeptical. And what we can do is if we can remove the risk factor, people feel much more comfortable moving forward. And you actually prove it. That's a way. Proof will always trump claims. And if you could just remove the barriers, remove the obstacles, and get a pair of contacts on their eye, the likelihood of them moving forward is so much greater. And it really costs you almost nothing, right?
Well, I would say it's saving me time, right? So trying to explain to a patient that's never had a contact lens on their eye, had a cousin that one time lost a contact lens in their eye and it went back to the brain and they never got it out and had a corneal ulcer. They've heard all these horror stories we see on the news, the girl recently that showered in her contact lens and had to have a corneal transplant. You've got all this fear around contact lenses. And then I'm trying to convince someone that they're a good candidate for contact lenses. And I've got to spend, 5 minutes talking about how you're an excellent candidate. And especially with dailies, the chances of this go way down of having any other problems versus, and you got to pay a fee. Oh, you just want your fee, doctor, don't you? Versus, let me just put it on your eye. Let me just get a lens on the eye. Even a patient that says, hey, are you interested in wearing contact lenses? I really have no interest in wearing contact lenses. I love wearing my glasses. Cool. Can I put a contact lens on so you can see what you look like in glasses up front? Isn't it really hard for you to see what you look like in glasses? With this type of prescription, it's really tough to tell, isn't it? Yeah, I have to get so close to the mirror. I'm a -7. Okay, let's pop some contact lenses on just so you can see what it's all about. So it is saving me time because I'm not having to have that conversation. We're also delegating that to our technicians in our practice. So I've got a button that says, I need a technician for a contact lens demo. They go into my chart, they grab the contact lenses that I've already put in there as a free contact lens demo, and they pop in to put the lenses on the patient. So delegating that to staff, and I believe all states probably they can, put a technician can put a contact lens under the doctor's license onto someone's eye. I think is just excellent, and it builds that value, especially on that patient that dropped out of contact lenses. They've dropped out. They're already very, very skeptical. The doctor, before the patient dropped out, presumably had tried a number of contact lenses that the doctor maybe built up and did not work. So put your money where your mouth is. And luckily, we have those lenses at our disposal in a fitting set. I mean, the amount of lenses in a fitting set is just astronomical these days. We got a multifocal toric in a fitting set.
So it's faster, which is a great point. And while doctors don't necessarily like the word free, consumers do. And they're the ones with the credit card. So mentioning that we offer a free fitting today. And remember, Scott, as they say in the world of sales, it's not a sin to not get the sale. It's a sin to spend a long time not getting the sale.
Well, just to correct you, we do not call it a free fitting. We call it a free demo. So I like
Okay,
the term now, test drive. Can we do a
got it.
free test drive? If you go buy a car, before you buy the car, you get a free test drive. Does that mean you get to leave the lot with the car for free? No, absolutely not. It's a free test drive. So on the front end, hey, patient, would you like a free test drive of contact lenses? We put them on, we take them off before you go. The patient says, no, absolutely not. Well, patient, you'd be a really good candidate. No, I don't want it. We're done with the conversation. How long did that take me? 12 seconds, something like that. Hey, patient, would you like a free test drive of contact lenses? You'd be just such an excellent candidate for these newer lenses that we didn't have before when you dropped out of contacts. Well, yes, I would. Well, and this is when I give my caveat, it is a free test drive. If you end up going with them, there is an evaluation fee. If not, absolutely nothing. We take them off free for you to test drive. But again, there is that evaluation fee if you want to go with them, or if we need to start tweaking the powers. And remember, it's always a balancing act between far away and up close. We can give you more far away, we can give you more up close. But if we end up starting to tweak those powers, we're moving forward with the eval at that point in time, and there will be a charge. I don't give that caveat until they sign up for the demo, and then we give that caveat before the lenses go on.
Yeah, great point. My bad semantics. And I wasn't suggesting that the entire fit would be done for free, but just taking a pair of lenses, them on the eye. Again, the word I read somewhere that there's certain words that tend to grab people's attention in articles and headlines, and free's one of them. It's just one of those trigger words. That's why I brought that up. Other words are simple, easy was ones. When people see these words, it tends to grab their attention. So yeah, wasn't at all suggesting that the entire fit would be done for free. That needs to be charged for. Back to the business of this. If you can get more patients into contact lenses, what data do we have right now on that lifetime value of a patient? The value of a contact lens patient over a period of time. I think I've seen it done for 6-year increments versus a glasses patient.
So the average life of a patient, you're absolutely correct, in your practice is 6 years. So, private practices, educated guess, probably a little bit more than this, but national average, if you average, the patient that comes in from out of town, foreign body when they're at their cousin's house, has to come see you versus the lifers, average life of a patient in the average optometry practice in the United States, 6 years. The glasses patient comes in 2.4 times, or roughly every 30 months. The contact lens patient comes in 4.8. So that contact lens patient is coming in double the amount of times as your glasses only patient. And again, everyone may say, hey, well, my practice does better than that. Probably if you're on, a podcast like this, listening to this in your free time. But national average, the contact lens patient coming in twice as much. Let's take that a step further. If we have a daily disposable contact lens patient, they're coming in roughly every 13 months, glasses only every 30. That is huge, huge, huge to your bottom line. It's effectively over double the amount of patients coming in if they're a contact lens patient versus glasses only. So if we're losing these patients to contact lens dropout, that's a lot less visits at your office.
Yeah, and do the math. If we're talking about one patient over the course of a year, it's not a big difference, right? But when you multiply that over the number of patients that you're able to get into contacts, then it's going to make a pretty significant difference for the bottom line of your practice over a period of time. So you may have answered much of this already, but let me throw the question out there anyway on just how it's presented. I know you've talked about some things, just getting them into a trial, but I'm curious, maybe anything additional that you do from a presentation standpoint, or your staff. Is there anything on the front end, the phone call, the teching that presents context to them? I'm a big believer in this. Something I talk a lot about is being an effective communicator. And there's a quote by Warren Buffett that goes, you can have all the brain power in the world, but you have to be able to transmit it. And the transmission is communication. Doctors talk all the time about patient education, but what I've seen, and I think this is backed up by research and science, is that information alone is not really a great catalyst for motivating people's actions and decisions. Information alone can be surprisingly ineffective when it comes to getting people to do something or to change something. Rather, what's more important is how that information is presented. And I truly believe that you can have two different doctors talking about the same thing to a patient. One gets the patient to go along with their advice, recommendations, prescription. The other one gets a patient that nods their head and says, I'll think about it, and they leave without doing it. And the major difference was just how it was presented. Anything additional you could add, either by you or the staff, in terms of how you present this or things you've learned along the way that get more patients to say, yes, I want to try that energizes them and builds desire for wanting to try contacts or get back into contacts?
So the first word I would say is consistency. So when you call up our office, hey, I need to come in for an exam, contact lens exam or glasses only. So now we've already presented the idea. Okay, no, glasses only, glasses only. All right. During the pre-testing process with our technicians, Miss Jones, we see that you're here for your exam. Are we doing contact lenses today? Well, she's already booked for a glasses only exam. We're still going to ask about contact lenses. We do not pigeonhole these patients. Now, if they're already in contact lenses, hey, your contact lens evaluation is this, that, or the other today, if it's a contact lens exam. But if it's a glasses exam, we say, are we doing contact lenses today? Well, no, I'm not doing contact lenses today. Well, would you like a free contact lens demo? It looks like you're an excellent candidate for contact lenses. Would you like a free contact lens demo? Please tell me who's not a good candidate for a demo of contact lenses. We actually now do free contact lens demos for patients that have keratoconus that don't want to go into a scleral. I will say, let me just throw on a free contact lens scleral for you to show you how much better you're going to see out of one eye compared to the other, do a quick over refraction, and then we just put a trial frame on top. Now, oftentimes we do that when we see the patient back for their keratoconus evaluation with a medical office visit, maybe not at their VSP exam, but we even do that for a keratoconic patient. So would you like a free contact lens demo? Even if the patient says no, when the doctor goes in, the doctor will say, looking at your prescription, you would really be a great candidate for contact lenses. So they've now heard it from 3 people. Check-in person, do you want contacts? Pre-testing person, you want the demo? Even if they say no to that demo, I cannot tell you how often, over half the time, I say, patient, would you be like a contact lens demo? You're an excellent candidate. Well, now that the doctor says I'm a good candidate, yeah, absolutely, I do want that demo. So that's part one. Part two, once you get the lens on the eye, the lens is going to speak for itself if you're fitting, a product that works. The other thing is about how you actually capture the contact lens sale. So psychologically, as human beings, we don't want to lose things. We don't really care about what we have to gain. And this is a little counterintuitive, but there's a lot of science to back this up. We don't want to hear about what we have to lose. So before we talk about contact lenses, let's talk about our marketing emails. So we start off doing marketing emails for the second half of the year that say, use it or lose it. Oftentimes you'll lose your insurance if you don't use it before the end of the year. And we have an amazing amount of patients making online appointments and calling every single time we send that email out. So we said, great, we're marketing really well. So why don't we send out a new email at the beginning of the year that says new year, new benefits? And we had hardly anyone respond to that. So that just further proves people don't want to lose something when they have new benefits to gain. They say, I got the full year to do it, no big deal, but I don't want to lose those benefits before the end of the year. So how we present contact lenses to patients, and this actually goes back to how we have a apples to apples comparison of our online contact lens prices versus our contact lens prices. So if a patient's fit with a particular contact lens, we've got an Excel document in the exam lane. It says box price for the right eye, box price for the left eye. Number of boxes for a year supply for the right eye, number of boxes for a year supply of the left eye. Insurance if applicable. Year supply rebate, if applicable, always having the assumption the patient's going to buy a year's supply. Then we divide the amount of dollars that is after rebate divided by the number of boxes. So rather than saying, hey, patient, this box of contact lenses is $65 that they just Googled online is $45 online, we can come in and say after insurance, after rebate, the box price is going to be $42.50. We're starting with that number. And now we've built that emotional deposit with the patient to say, listen, we're even beating that quick online price match or price anchoring that you did while I went and grabbed that contact lens. If the patient says, I don't think I want to buy a year's supply of contact lenses, we say, okay, and we hit the backspace, the delete on the rebate. And we say, listen, if you don't buy a year's supply of contact lenses, let's say the rebate's $300, you're going to lose $300 by not buying a year's supply. And if you end up using your insurance, or if you end up not using your insurance, say it's a $200 allowable with their insurance, you're going to lose the $200 with your insurance. So by not buying a year's supply and not using your insurance, you're losing patient $500. That's not sales. That's just going over a document. We're just going over the numbers visually where everyone can see it. I always tell my staff, if you were walking down the street and you dropped 3 $100 bills out of your pocket on the ground and someone said, hey, you just dropped these, here you go. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that's an emotional deposit. We're doing the same thing if we don't go over that year supply rebate with the patient.
That's a very important point that you made about we are more driven to avoid losing things. In fact, what the research actually shows about we're 2 to 3 times more likely to be motivated to do something to avoid a loss versus a gain. I remember I said before you could have two doctors that get different outcomes just based on how they presented something. I think it's something to keep in mind. I think doctors spend a lot of time, opticians spend a lot of time trying to get people to do something for gain, but also reminding people what they'll lose. I bring this up a lot when there's an objection, and you're always going to have to face some objections. But when you've talked about a product or a service and somebody balks at the price, it's that one last reminder that says, that's fine. We can go with the less costly of the two options, but just a reminder, you're going to give up these features. And it gives them one last chance to contemplate what they're losing by not. And I experienced that when I was in practice. You give people that space there just to think about it. And a lot of times it will prompt them to say, okay, let's just go with the higher price one, the better or the premium one, because I don't want to give that up. I want to circle back to something you said before too about the consistency, and people are hearing it multiple times. They're hearing it on the phone, they're hearing it from a pre-tester, they're hearing it from you. I think what it builds is a chance to create some curiosity about contact lenses along the way. There's a certain framework that goes curiosity, enlightenment, commitment. And this is true in sales, and I think it's true in healthcare as well. But a lot of times, people in sales, doctors do the same thing. We jump in and we try to enlighten people on why they should do something. We're basically going to educate, we're going to share the information. But as we talked about before, information alone can be surprisingly ineffective in getting people to move forward on something. We do it all the time as doctors: talk, 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 educate, educate, educate. Patients nod their head up and down, but they don't do it. What drives most of our decisions is not enlightenment, it's curiosity. And we skip that step. If you want to be more effective in sales, if you want to be more effective in patient care, if you can pique people's curiosity about what they might want to do something, they start exploring their own reasons for wanting to do it. And I think that's what you can accomplish in your consistency steps, where they're hearing it. Okay, the first time they turned it down. The second time, they thought about it, but still not fully on board. They're hearing it for the third time, and now they're thinking, maybe I do want to try these. I'm kind of curious now. If you guys are saying how well they're going to work, now I'm kind of curious. But instead of being told to do it, they're coming up with their own reasons. So, I think these are great pieces of advice for somebody to try something differently in how they present contacts. As we wrap up here, Scott, any final thoughts or tips on avoiding contact lens dropout? And if feel free here to give a shout out. I know you work with Bausch and Lomb. They're sponsoring this podcast. Give a shout out to them. Any other products or partners that you've supported with your practice?
Absolutely. And I want to loop back to a couple of things that we hit before. There are things where you have to just shove information down a patient's throat. Glaucoma. Patient, you have no symptoms of this. Let me tell you all these bad things that can happen with glaucoma, and you have to shove that information down the patient's throat. The beauty of contact lenses is you don't have to shove the information down the throat. Just get the lens on the eye, save yourself all that time, add the value to the patient's glasses exam of that free contact lens demo. And then also the other concept that we talked about is, if you don't want these contact lenses, we will take them off. You can now lose that ability to wear contact lenses that you just experienced. So it also plays off of that loss principle, that we don't want to lose things. If you take nothing else away from today, earn your contact lens evaluation. If you take nothing else away, try your best. Even if that patient, hey, I'm great in my contact lenses, everything is wonderful, try to earn that. Because we all know that patients are often different with us, the doctors in the exam lane, compared to the front desk. You may see notes in there to the front desk. Patient really keeps complaining, a lot of pushback about having to pay for a contact lens evaluation. Those are all emotional withdrawals. So is your contact lens evaluation an emotional withdrawal? Or for a lot of our patients coming in, they say, Doc, I love coming to see you. Even though my contact lenses are great, you always have the latest and the greatest new technology. That's an emotional deposit. They're coming in excited about at least having a new product. Of course, no one wants to pay for anything, but try to earn that contact lens evaluation. Try to give the patient some kind of benefit out of them coming to see you. That's number one. Number two is you need to train your staff on a regular basis as to how to present the contact lens pricing or anything um, with consistency. We train on that contact lens Excel document at least once a month. And in our practice, we have a 30-minute huddle every single day, 4 days a week, except for the 1 day a week when we have our office meeting that's 1 hour. So we are doing 3 hours of training with our entire office every single week. These are people that are already fully trained. This is not our formalized training process for check-in, for technicians, for opticians, things along those lines. When we polled our staff, when we started these huddles, and in our huddle, we give it to the doctors. We say, you could go over whatever you want. You can go over keratoconus, you can go over contact lens sales, you can go over presbyopia, whatever you feel like the staff needs, go over, just make it applicable for everybody. When we polled our staff, that was the biggest change that they liked. Not raises, not other spiffs. The biggest change that they liked was that we're spending time teaching them during a huddle, 30 minutes every morning, on how to be more knowledgeable about what they're doing every day. So that's an emotional deposit that we're making in our staff. I was absolutely shocked that they said coming in 30 minutes early to sit and hear a doctor talk was the biggest good change that they made throughout the year. With the contact lens demo program, we find that a lot of our patients that hit presbyopia dropped out of contact lenses, and we're reintroducing them. So for ABB, only 11% of all contact lenses that are sold from ABB are multifocals. Over half the United States population is over 40 years old. That's a big discrepancy. We're at 25% multifocals versus 11. Also, remember, half the population, we got millennials now that are presbyopic, right? These people do not want to go and have glasses on top and feel old. So if you don't feel comfortable fitting multifocals, get comfortable fitting multifocals. If you don't feel comfortable fitting torics, get comfortable, because patients with astigmatism are twice as likely to drop out of contact lenses when they hit presbyopia. I do lecture for Bausch and Lomb. I've been lecturing with them for about 10 years. At the time I chose to lecture for them, I had some offers to lecture elsewhere. I only lecture for Bausch and Lomb contact lenses on the contact lens side of things. Why I chose Bausch and Lomb, they had a pipeline. I said, hey, what do you guys got coming? I need new products. I need innovative products to fit my patients with. They had a huge pipeline. They still have a huge pipeline. They changed that pipeline based off of what doctors and what patients say to them. So I'm just blown away with that. They allow me on their newer products, especially, to very much compete online, especially with those high rebates. The Infuse lens, it has between a 45 and 47% year supply capture rate of the lenses, and it's that huge rebate that is causing that really, really high capture rate. And again, that's a national average. So we got practices that are doing a not so good job and practices doing an excellent job, but 45 to 47% year supply capture rate on Infuse is just huge. And finally, brand recognition. It's so much easier to fit a product when patients know that brand. Oh, I see Bausch and Lomb. They got vitamins, they got pharmaceuticals, they got cosmetics. I really trust that brand. And it's a very, very well-known brand. So we like to have that public brand recognition as well.
Scott, thanks for all of this. It's just a last 45 minutes or so, just so many pearls to take away. I think very actionable stuff that people can implement into their practice. And what I took away is just, I hope this helps doctors come up with a more proactive strategy of not assuming that because somebody said they couldn't wear contacts before that they can no longer wear them, not assuming because somebody says that they're not interested, that they're truly not interested, and having a proactive strategy that actually leads to more satisfied patients, happier patients, but also a healthier bottom line for your practice as well. I think we get a little bit jaded with contact lenses and doctors get in a hurry. I think you pointed out some things in terms of how doctors could be more efficient with the process, which is, I think, one of their big reservations is I just don't have time. If somebody comes in and says, I don't want to wear contacts, we're real quick to say, okay, it allows us to stay on schedule, but yeah, it hurts the patient and it hurts the business. And I think that it might be time for a lot of practices to look at how they actually do things and how can we work this into our system to make sure that we are able to do it, but doing it effectively and efficiently as well. What do we need to get there? Do we need more staff? Do we need more trained staff? Do we need to look at what contact lenses we're prescribing and all the things? But you can do it, and I think your bottom line will really. It's a great investment, right? In the kind of things that you could do that could really add to the bottom line of the practice. So thanks for all your input on this.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
So thanks again to Scott, and thanks everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening, leave a review and share it with your friends and colleagues. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And to learn more about iDoc, you can visit our website at idoc.net. That's idoc.net, and check out the links in our show notes for some helpful resources for your practice. So we will see you next time, and keep dreaming big.